Okay, everybody, this is Matthew Brenner. The date today is December 16th, 2016, and I am making this video about Alex Jones of Infowars. There is an intense campaign out there to smear him, and I have followed Alex Jones for years. Now, there are lots of conspiracy theories about him, in that when the WikiLeaks came out about Stratfor, strategic forecasting, that he was associated with him, there were in fact emails addressed to him. Now, I don't know what his relationship is with Stratfor. Maybe he gets some of his information from there. I do not know. But I do not doubt that he is a patriot and that he means well. He releases a lot of information that is true. He has some excellent sources. I believe that he completely means well. He supports the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And there is an all-out smear campaign against him. CNN absolutely deplores him. And they will do anything to make him look bad. As a matter of fact, coming up, I have the CNN footage that goes ahead and smears him and does not even give him a fair chance to defend himself. And I thought I would show it to you and give you a chance to look at it. And then after that, I would include a broadcast showing you what he's really all about and what he wants. Because I think it's important at this point to stick up with Alex Jones, or for Alex Jones. Because if somebody doesn't do it, then, he is in danger of being shut out. And that would be a travesty, because Infowars is one of the best sites for information. It's not Russian propaganda. It's not fake news. Yes, it has a conservative bent. Liberals are not inclined to like what they see. But there is the matter of the First Amendment and freedom of speech. I believe Alex Jones has the right to say what he does, inasmuch as people at the Huffington Post, the Daily Beast, the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, the big six media companies, which have been consolidated over the years, thanks to the FCC Act of 1996, brought to you by the Clintons. And this media consolidation has actually been a disaster. The media seems to be in the pocket of the Democrats and the left. They supported Hillary Clinton blatantly throughout the entire election. They demonized Donald Trump, some kind of womanizer and pervert. Meanwhile, you have Bill Clinton that has women that have alleged he has raped him, not just one, not just two, but several. Whether it's Paula Jones or Juanita Broderick. And I tend to believe these women. I mean, Bill Clinton is a sex addict. He reportedly went to Jeffrey Epstein's island there on the Lolita Express. And, it was like 26 times, and there were certain times where he ditched his Secret Service. And you have to wonder, if there were underage girls, what was he up to? I mean, is he some kind of pedophile? And supposedly Hillary went there 6 times. And what was she up to? I could see if he went there once, he saw what was going on, he was disgusted, and he never went back. But this guy was pals with Jeffrey Epstein. And, he continued to go there. So he had to know what was going on. And I'm thinking it's highly likely that he participated. And, I mean, Alex Jones tries to bring you the truth about 9/11. And as far as Sandy Hook, I mean, what actually happened, maybe we'll never know. But, I mean, there's been so many conflicting stories. There was some guy in the woods. They said there was 1 shooter, 2 shooters. CNN did a green screen. They got caught out because the same cars were shown with the traffic. And, they play all kinds of games, and they set themselves up for the conspiracy theory crowd. And people start asking questions, and like the less and less information becomes available, everything gets sealed as confidential, so then it makes it just look more suspicious. Alright, well, I'm thinking that it's time to show you guys the CNN footage. So let's see what the mainstream media has to say about Alex Jones. I really think they do not do him justice, because he is anathema to everything that they stand for. I mean, they are shills for the establishment, and they cannot change their business model. They have to continue to lie, because anytime they've attempted to tell the truth, they've gotten in trouble. As I mentioned before, Dan Rather got fired for reporting on George W. Bush's military service. Dr. Drew lost his show for asking, about Hillary Clinton's health. So the elites will come after these guys if they actually try to do true journalism. So they are stuck with the narrative that the government wants put forth. But anyway, without further ado, here it is.
There is no evidence of widespread voter fraud, of course, but there is one website that's reported this claim, this baseless claim, and it's one that maybe, I don't know, does Trump rely on this for his news?
Infowars is the brainchild of radio host Alex Jones, who Rolling Stone once called the most paranoid man in America.
It's been a cozy relationship from the beginning.
I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot. But
Donald Trump and Alex Jones, the conservative conspiracy theorist and operator of the website Infowars, which seems to be a place where Trump gets a lot of his information.
Does it scare you that the president-elect is listening to Infowars?
Jones can take credit for spearheading some of the most outrageous theories on the internet, from claims that 9/11 was a government conspiracy to the Sandy Hook shooting being faked.
Jones has suggested that the 9/11 attacks and the Boston Marathon bombing were inside jobs by the U.S. government. And Infowars helped fuel the rumor that President Obama is an ISIS supporter.
Obama as the leader of ISIS.
ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS.
Jones' theories reach tens of millions each month and are now often echoed by the next president of the United States.
This is the man who's going to be president of the United States, going, following Infowars, talking about which
I don't know anything.
It was an inside job.
If Donald Trump based his voter fraud claim on what he read on Infowars, it wouldn't be the first time.
In a move that could further fuel concern, Alex Jones, operator of the Infowars website, says Trump called to offer his gratitude.
He said, listen, Alex, I just talked to the kings and queens of the world leaders, you name it. He said, it doesn't matter. I wanted to talk to you to thank your audience, and I'll be on the next few weeks to thank them.
When Trump argued that thousands and thousands of Muslims in New Jersey celebrated the 9/11 attacks, he tweeted a link to Infowars.
When Jones posted this video entitled An Emergency Message to Donald Trump during the campaign,
I am going to ask you to seriously think about making the issue of Hillary's election fraud in the primaries one of the central issues to defeating her in November.
Trump had this to say a day later.
I'm afraid the election's going to be rigged, I have to be honest. Because I think my side was rigged.
And in the wake of the election, Jones pushing a theory that despite the vote totals, Trump actually won the popular vote.
Millions of illegals voting, at least 5 states being stolen for Hillary. We're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 million people more voting for Trump, if you look at the evidence, in the popular vote than did.
And Trump tweeting just 4 days later, quote, in addition to winning the Electoral College in a landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally.
I'll tell you, it is surreal to talk about issues here on air and then word for word hear Trump say it 2 days later. It is amazing. Amazing.
Where exactly does the president-elect get his information? Most importantly, perhaps, where does he get his intelligence information?
It remains to be seen whether the conspiracy-driven website remains a go-to for the president-elect.
Your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot.
Randy Kay, CNN, New York.
Okay, now let's see Alex Jones's response to the voter fraud that Trump was talking about. And I think he makes a pretty cogent case. So let's see what he has to say about the matter.
The same corporate establishment media that told you thousands of times that Donald Trump couldn't be the nominee and that Donald Trump then couldn't win the election, or that Donald Trump was 5, 10, 15, 20 points behind, despite the fact that real polls showed he was 10 points ahead on average. The same media that tells you that Iraq had WMDs and that tells you that Obamacare is free is now pushing a national movement to have the electors from the states that represent the voters, when they coming up in December 20th, certify via the Electoral College that Donald John Trump, the first, is our 45th president of the United States. They're pushing a movement to overturn that. They've now got, quote, Bernie Sanders electors, don't know how that works, claiming that they, too, are going to be giving their votes to Hillary to unseat President Trump. This is all part of the destabilization of this country, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go over, though, the evidence here that it is uncontrovertible fact that 3 million illegals voted and that tens of millions of people were on the voter rolls who were dead, and at least 4 million of them voted as well. So what's 3 and 4 million? 7 million people voted that were either not citizens, were illegal, or were dead. Now, that's Associated Press, that's Reuters, that's Fox News, that's Pew Research. That is not debatable. We're going to put some of those articles up on screens. Some numbers had 20 million dead people potentially voting. But conservatively, we know 4 million. Now, remember, Sanders was winning across the country, and even Stanford University certified that he was the winner. We now have WikiLeaks that have come out where they're threatening different people. Democrats saying, listen, stop being for Sanders. He will be the nominee. He's been chosen. This is months and months and months and months, even before the convention. So the fix was in. They told us Donald Trump couldn't win as well. Remember that? Even though he had double the votes in the primary. They were saying, oh, the super delegates, they're going to decide. But Trump fought it, so they didn't get away with it. So first, Trump lost by 500,000. Then it was 1 million. Now they're saying 1.6 as they go back and make announcements. But Paul Watson wrote for Infowars.com today and pointed out they claimed a recount in Michigan that never even happened. They said it was digital, but it's all paper ballots. Trump was getting 20,000 people in Michigan. She was getting 300. Again, the evidence is it was a landslide for Trump. And here's what's really key. The DNC admitted they stole the election from Bernie Sanders. And Stanford Research, again, at Stanford University, said the same thing. But then it gets even more hardcore. We had Bev Harris, a Democrat, a liberal, the lady that exposed the fact that Gore had the 2000 election stolen from him. I'm nonpartisan. I concurred with her analysis in 2000. Bipartisan fraud goes back and forth. The Republican establishment was against Trump as well. So she came on before and after the election, and the day after the election she came on. The full video is on Infowars.com. The article video is titled, Hillary Tried to Steal Election from Trump, but Failed Bev Harris. 5 states showed massive anomalies that tipped and went to Hillary when all the evidence showed it was a Trump win, including over 100% of the voters in precincts going for Hillary. That is impossible. But the landslide was so big in the other counties in some of the major swing states, she was unable to prevail. So, millions of dead people voting, millions of illegals voting, at least 5 states being stolen for Hillary. We're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 million people more voting for Trump, if you look at the evidence in the popular vote, than did. So if you believe this 1.6 million number they've got, you add that to, say, 5 million, a conservative number, we're still talking about 3+ million people, almost 4 million people that voted for Trump than for Hillary. Look at the crowds. Look at the numbers. Look at how they rigged the polls. Look at how the media gave the questions in the debates every time to Hillary ahead of schedule. Look at how the head of the DNC and then the second head of the DNC got caught lying, caught over and over again. This is the reality. Donald J. Trump didn't just win the Electoral College in a landslide. He also clearly won the popular vote. But now they're pushing this Soros fraud that he is illegitimate and that he stole the election, when this is a giant referendum against globalism and what the New World Order has been doing. But I haven't even gotten to the evidence yet. This is just the foundation, which is open and shut, that Trump is the overall winner of popular and electoral votes. We then have Project Veritas in a devastating coup, getting multiple top officials in the Democratic Party that head up their election voting systems and get out the vote programs like Kramer and others, admitting that they were going to steal and have people vote 10 times and that nothing could stop them and that they could F their mother and get away with it and that they had people voting over and over again using list of dead people yet again. So we have all of that footage. Then we have the election official over all of New York City, a Democrat, but like Bev Harris, a good person. Used to be a day back when I thought Democrats might be better than Republicans. He came out and said that, oh my gosh, to Project Veritas, there's massive fraud. They're bussing people around to vote illegally over and over again, already in early voting. He just got relieved by the mayor of New York City as the head of elections last week for telling the truth. It needs to be the mayor that gets removed, not the head of elections. Then we had women and men arrested in Florida, Colorado, and a bunch of other states voting repeatedly, and they had lists of dead people that they'd been given to go out and, again, steal the election. That's election fraud through the individuals at the grassroots, voter fraud. But it's technically election fraud because it's organized at the top. They want to tell us that election fraud wasn't going on by organizing blocks of voters to engage in voter fraud when a whole bunch of states got laws passed or almost passed to let illegals vote in sanctuary cities. And then, of course, we caught illegals voting in the sanctuary cities. So it's Hillary that tried to steal the election, and her evil supporters got their criminal asses kicked. So just get used to it. But I'm going to tell the schmucks that support Hillary something. You're delusional. That witch doesn't care about you. What do you have to lose with Trump? He wants to cut people's taxes who are working class to zero. God almighty, just let Trump take the government out of your way. Now, in closing, you've got to check this evidence out for yourself. The integrity of our election systems is under attack. And it was the Democrats who were always screaming bloody murder about it, and rightfully so, because Republicans have stolen elections, that are the ones telling us now, don't look at election fraud before the election. Obama said it didn't exist. Trump was crazy. I was crazy. But the UN had to come in and oversee the elections. Then as soon as the election takes place, they claim it's a fraud and that Trump basically stole the election. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So to everybody out there that's butthurt over the fact that Hillary Clinton lost, you ran a corrupt kleptocrat warmonger, one of the most evil people in modern world history, who lied about stolen valor like Brian Williams, the list goes on, who stole the money from the Haitian children. Even Chelsea was angry at her about that. You ran a horrible, dirty criminal that even liberals like Julian Assange exposed and said was much worse than Trump. So it's your fault you're not a real liberal like Julian Assange or Bev Harris or all these other great people like Edward Snowden that are telling the truth. It's your fault that you are morally bankrupt and don't care what the truth is, and are now mad that your arch criminal couldn't get in, even though she was just going to screw you over like Obama did black voters once he got in. If Trump delivers on cutting taxes, if Trump delivers on securing our border, if Trump delivers on battling and stopping ISIS and not launching wars with Russia, he's already delivered because he's not out to get the American people. That's the difference with Trump. And the left wants to break this country's will and totally conquer it It's just an act of a power trip. It's an act of control freaks. And not just the U.S., but the world is rejecting it.
Okay, so now do you want to hear Donald Trump's thoughts on the matter? This is a video clip with Donald Trump being interviewed on 9/11. Mind you, he's a builder and he understands a lot about construction and architecture, and I value his opinion. In fact, he wants a new investigation into 9/11. Remember, 2 planes hit, 3 buildings fell. And I don't buy the jet fuel is what brought down the buildings. I think it was explosives, and evidence has since surfaced that supports that theory. People have to stop thinking that this 9/11 truth is a hoax. Let's listen to what Trump has to say.
Debris.
Donald, you're probably the best known builder, particularly of great buildings in the city. There's a great deal of question about whether or not the damage and the ultimate destruction of the buildings was caused by the airplanes, by architectural defect, or possibly by bombs or aftershocks. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it was an architectural defect. You know, the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation, and it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we were looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2, and when you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think that it was a plane with more than just fuel. I think, obviously, they were very big planes. They were going very rapidly, because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down into the building. So it was getting the speed from going downhill, so to speak. It just seemed to me that to do that kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a building. I mean, these buildings were rock solid, and you know, it's just an amazing thing. This country is different today, and it's going to be different than it ever was for many years to come.
Very profound statement and very true.
That's the third. Down it went.
Oh, it just blew up. You see that blow out? That's a gun.
Imagine the explosive force necessary to blow a person straight out of a window. And it's just that window, without any of the other windows or floors being affected. 9/11 deserves a second look. Not only for those that went through it, but for the millions of lives that have been affected ever since. Because if an explosion brought those towers down, then the whole thing's a mass deception. Remember, the people that told you about WMDs in Iraq were the ones who told you who did what on 9/11.
It's time for freedom lovers around the world to stop living in denial. Chinese-style net censorship and beyond is now being openly and incrementally deployed across the planet. We have had Cass Sunstein, the White House regulations czar, come out and say they want to, quote, ban conspiracy theories, make you get a license to be able to have a website. The Italian government has already implemented this. The Australian government is implementing it and putting in total net filtering, banning websites like WikiLeaks. Major ISPs around the world have been banning Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, my sites. It's incredible. And the public isn't very savvy about the technical things that are involved here. For instance, several New Zealand publications reported, and I got hundreds of emails from people in Australia and New Zealand in the last week saying that most major ISPs were blocking getting to Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And then I got emails saying, well, wait a minute, I'm in Australia or New Zealand, I can still get it. Yes, on your ISP, but some of the biggest were blocking us. And there are public statements put out by them that indeed we were blocked. But because of public outcry, we are now not blocked. The Australian government is saying they will just add to a list whoever they want, or if anyone ever complains about a site. No judge, no jury, no due process, your site is banned. Domestic sites in Australia are being banned. They're making people now register with the government to be able to have a site that criticizes politicians. This is in the news. This is happening. 2 weeks ago, Bill Gates came out and said, I support China in their censorship. Now, China mainly uses web filtering. Even more abusive and draconian in the United States, we have the head technology officer at Microsoft and others at Davos and UN meetings agreeing with the UN and saying we want all Americans, all Brits and all Canadians to have to sign in with a net ID, preferably via a biometric. They're openly proposing that this now happen. On top of that, I happen to have the cybersecurity bill that passed the House of Representatives almost overwhelming. There were just a few votes against it, and it's moving on to the Senate. And I challenge people to go read this bill for yourself. It recruits high schoolers and college students to join Homeland Security. The Pentagon admits that they now are hiring tens of thousands of bloggers to counter disinformation on American blogs. They say they may target. Now, there was an Air Force a few months ago talked about killing American journalists in country. Even the smallest IT provider will have to put in the software and government snooping hubs where everything is recorded by the government, everything's controlled. These indexes of thousands of websites that are banned have to be installed at the local ISP level, even in small towns. Under these different blacklists, we are included, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, all over the country and all over Europe and many other areas of the world. We have been sent countless screenshots of Cox Communications, Time Warner, you name it, ISPs in England. We've written articles and put links to their statements going back 4 years saying this is objectionable material. And there's really 4 ways they flag. They say porn, or they say hate, or they say gambling, or illegal activity. And they normally use hate for us. Now, even if you think what we're saying is hateful, shouldn't there be the free speech? Shouldn't you have the decision to go to Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com? The truth is, we have some of the most banned sites worldwide because we are effective. We cover the real issues. And so it's not just universities and law enforcement centers and public schools and corporations that are now banning us. We've got a list on PrisonPlanet.com in an article that Paul Watson wrote titled Frightening Taste of Internet Censorship as Major Free Speech Website Blocked. In Watson's article, we have links where major transportation hubs in the EU and in England that are supposedly free internet, that's taxpayer paid for, and Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com is blocked. So we have been put in these databases fraudulently to be blocked, and you shouldn't put up with it. You should complain. You should say no.
You should call your ISP, tell them you're going to move on to somebody else if they continue this. Because if we allow this incremental implementation of Chinese-style net censorship, obviously it's going to hurt our society. Every time they attempt to incrementally restrict the internet and the free flow of information, we need to stand up and say no. And we need to stand up to Time Magazine and the New York Times and countless other mainstream publications that have all called in the last month for a net ID to be able to get online, who've called for internet taxes, who've called for taxes and regulation on talk radio, because they can't just ignore the internet. They can't fund COINTELPRO and Pentagon disinformation to have us all infight with each other. They've done all that, and it's not working. So now they want to incrementally shut it down. They want to force things onto Internet 2, the safe internet, as the UN and a Microsoft executive said. Then you'll have the old internet, they claim. But if you really read Internet 2 consortium meeting minutes, they plan to force everybody over to the new internet, where you have a subdomain with a major carrier who can shut you down whenever they want. And then they're going to incrementally shut down the old web and use this cybersecurity legislation to restrict free speech. And in the words of the White House, in the words of Barack Obama, they have said a declaration of war against free speech, that they may shut the web down to save it during some staged false flag cyber attack they launch. They have said that the Pentagon is going to be in control of it. They're building the giant NSA/Pentagon fortresses all over the country and forcing all the major ISPs to wire into their grid. They've built a giant separate network outside of the original internet that they're going to force everyone onto. This is happening. IT professionals everywhere are discussing it. CNET News is exposing it. Mother Jones, back in April of last year, almost a year ago, should Obama control the internet? A new bill would give President emergency authority to halt web traffic and access private data. Time Magazine pushes draconian internet licensing plan. Death of the internet, censorship bills in UK, Australia, US aim to block undesirable websites. One of their main targets is WikiLeaks. It's being banned everywhere because it exposes government corruption. Obama, information czar, calls for banning free speech. And I've got his quotes here from the paper that Cass Sunstein wrote a year and a half ago. Quote, government might ban conspiracy theorizing. That's any criticism of government. That's anything outside their tiny orthodoxy. He lists saying that man-made global warming isn't real as a bannable offense. He lists saying that a little bit of sunlight is good for you is a conspiracy theory and should be banned, when all the major studies show it's good for you. He says government might impose some kind of new tax, financial or otherwise, on those who disseminate such theories. I mean, folks, this is what they're saying. This is really happening. Police want backdoor to web users' private data without warrants. CNET News under cybersecurity. This is all going on. We are being censored right now. Do you understand? It's happening. Italy, England, Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand are all implementing this incrementally right now. Today it's the ISPs, but the ISPs are building in partnership with the government. It says private corporate partnerships where they hack up different sectors of the web and that they will be able to police and do whatever they want, recruiting giant youth squads to serve in homeland security facilities, countering disinformation, countering lies about the government. CENTCOM admits they're doing this. Stop living in denial. This is happening. What do we do about it? You call the Senate. You tell them, do not implement this draconian bill. The Senate version's even worse. Kill the Cybersecurity Act. Understand that our government's been caught staging false flag after false flag. They're constantly hyping how dangerous the internet is because they can't allow it to continue to operate because it's exposing their fraud. They have the incentive to launch a fake cybersecurity attack, just like the Gulf of Tonkin or the Reichstag, as a pretext of control. Support the free internet now while you still have it. Appreciate sites like WikiLeaks and Infowars.com and the Electronic Frontiers Foundation and what it's doing. Support sites like Cryptome. All of these sites are under attack on record. Many of them are being raided by the FBI. They don't want the people standing up against what they're doing. And they are testing the people's resolve right now. They are pushing the borders of what they can get away with. They're sending up trial balloons. Now is the time to let them know we are not going to let more oppressive laws than even communist China has installed take place here in the United States and in Europe. Out of the gates, they're proposing more oppressive systems than what China even has. And that's mainstream news. It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. If you think you're being raped by big government right now, they haven't even gotten started. We need to keep the internet free. We're also going to be developing plans to create printable newspapers, DVD distribution, other systems to get around all of this. But in the end, we're up against classic tyranny, and it doesn't look good. So please spread this video. Please spread the articles we've written. Please make your own videos and analyze the attacks on the internet. If we don't stand together, we're all going to hang separately. God bless you all.
This is Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org here at the Free Your Mind Conference here in Pennsylvania, New York, and I am joined by Jason Basler of the Free Thought Project and Nick Burley of the Anti-Media, both successful independent media organizations, and we're going to be talking about a lot of important things with the censorship that's happening and also possible solutions. Now, Nick, first of all, like, we all go through a lot of incredible kind of like censorship, a lot of things behind the scenes that people do not know about. We faced it very severely here at We Are Change with YouTube, Google, and AdSense just screwing us over. What have you been dealing with, and what do you think is the latest kind of news with censorship and independent free media?
Well, man, it's like you know, here with the independent media, you know, in many ways we're challenging the status quo. We're challenging corporate America. We're challenging the government. And many of these companies, unfortunately, like Google, the hugest internet company in the world, they kind of have a monopoly over advertising. They have a monopoly over the search engines and all that stuff. And so they can really use that to manipulate what people are able to see and how people are able to make a living from this media movement. And we're seeing that come to a head lately. I know you guys at We Are Change have been dealing with it on your YouTube channel. Keep in mind, Google owns YouTube as well. Antiwar.com has been dealing with it as far as Google pulling down all their ads because they were talking about Abu Ghraib. But we deal with this in the alternative media because we're challenging this system, and Google is a huge part of the government. I mean, they've got executives that work in economic development things within the Obama administration and stuff like that. So whenever people try to challenge this status quo, they may or may not face retaliation via censorship from companies like Google or Facebook or Yahoo that have a really heavy hand in this industry. And so that's one thing that I think people need to start understanding about what we're doing, is that there's a lot of forces against us. And, you know, we're talking about little companies. I mean, I don't know how many employees you guys have, but we have maybe 10 people, 15 people working with us. And we have very little resources, and we're kind of just working from the cuff. We're talking about billion-dollar industries that are heavily connected into the government. And whenever we start making waves into undermining that system, because in many ways that system is oppressive, they do what they can to shut down the message, and they try to kill the messenger. And that's what's been happening with many of these websites, whether we talk about antiwar.com, Mint Press News, on the Anti-Media. We're on our last warning from Google, because our last one came from an article we did on Abu Ghraib. Abu Ghraib is where the US government was torturing people in Iraq. And we cover this story because this is the news that people need to see, but then Google says, hey, you can't cover this news because it shows bad things happening. It's like, this is the stuff that we need people to see. If we're censoring that, then we're not letting the truth get out there, you know? And that's the biggest problem to me, is that these companies, whether it's economically trying to take away the monetization of our websites, of our organizations, they're censoring us. And it's in a subversive way. They're not coming and just saying, oh, we're shutting down your website, but they're just doing it in a way where it's like, oh, you just violated our policies. We're indirectly having to censor you. It's a huge problem, man. It's a huge problem.
Yeah. It used to be, you know, don't be evil, Google's model. Now it's like, don't show evil. Now they have over, you know, so many different lobbyists over there on K Street in Washington, totally working with the government. Now, Jason, how has your news organization, I mean, you guys with the Free Thought Project have been doing a lot of incredible work. Have you guys been affected by the censorship as well, and what's your status?
Sure, absolutely. Facebook has particularly targeted us over a lot of different arbitrary posts, which don't necessarily violate terms of contract, but one way or another, they're pulling down our posts, which obviously hurt our traffic income. And so more or less, it's been a huge issue with us. I think I've been banned 3 30-day bans within 2 months with different accounts, obviously, but it's certainly been affecting our progress and our flow of work. So it's become more of a problem over the past
See, we were talking yesterday, and I remember, whenever I made a Facebook post, bam, viral, 50, 100,000, 250,000, 500,000, one post I even made before got, 18 million views, it's just like, bam, viral, 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 hit, 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 and now it's like, hit, wait, smaller hit, maybe you get lucky in a hit, and then also we have the fact that Facebook, we actually had a page with over, 500,000 likes. They sold our page without even notification, without even saying anything, to Time Warner. And Time Warner bought our page, that was a fan page of Jesse Ventura's, 500,000 people, without even notifying us. So you could just see, Time Warner Cable, all these big corporations kind of engulfing and trying to suppress the free speech, the kind of evil that we're trying to expose, because we're ultimately kind of exposing them. Now, when we're doing that, we were kind of talking about solutions. Nick, you were just talking about some as well. Where do you think we should go from all these problems that we are facing?
Well, I think it's really important to start working on building alternative networks, decentralized networks. The internet is such a huge, diverse place, but unfortunately, it's in many ways controlled by very few corporations. Whether we're talking about the internet service providers like Verizon, Time Warner, or whether we're talking about the traffic providers like Google and Facebook, things like that.
These are the new gatekeepers.
Yeah, they really are. And the whole thing, and we're talking about this about censorship and stuff. The whole reason why we have freedom of speech is to protect controversial speech, right? And it's like to protect us to say things that are uncomfortable. And unfortunately, we've experienced when we say uncomfortable things, when we present information that's uncomfortable, like people being tortured by the US government, that stuff ends up being censored. So what we need to do, I think, is for one, start working on decentralized internet systems, finding alternatives to internet service providers. I think that's like the biggest, most important thing we can do. The other thing I think that would be really, really big is figuring out ways to build alternative advertising networks. Most of us rely on Google to monetize our content, which is what we use to pay our journalists and to pay our rents and to operate our computers and pay for our internet service. So we're relying on these companies like Google and Facebook. I think we need to start building new companies that are ideologically opposite to what Google and Facebook have become, which are these highly centralized corporations. We need to have decentralized ideas, kind of like what Bitcoin is, but for the internet, and to start building peer-to-peer internet systems, things like that, and then alternatives to advertising networks, alternatives to Google AdSense, alternatives to Yahoo Ads, and all that stuff. We need to find conscious companies that are ethically aligned with freedom to be willing to start funding this work so that we can all continue to push this movement forward, push this idea of freedom forward. It requires a lot of different facets. It requires a lot of different resources. And advertising is one thing that we're really lacking on. A lot of us know that Google is a horrible, evil company, but we still have to work with them because otherwise we won't be able to pay our journalists. So we need to figure out solutions to that. Anyone out there watching this, if you got any ideas, please contact us because we want to figure out alternatives to advertising, and we want to help companies that are ethical companies that believe in the ideas of individual freedom and rolling back oppression. We want to work with these companies. We can help them. They can help us. I think that's one of the other big things that we need to work on is getting everybody together.
Touch on was that if we could create mutually beneficial relationships with writers and all different types of people within the social media movement, then we could help each other to maintain this kind of new journalistic approach to combating the mainstream media. And that's one thing I wanted to touch on as well, is that this is such a brand new technology. We're pioneers in social media. Everyone should be taking up this opportunity right now to be spreading the word. And if you're passionate about spreading this information, you're already halfway there. You're already kicking ass, and you have the motivation to make sure that we're passing on this information that's valuable to each other. So that's one thing I would mention. And also just networking with each other. I mean, me and this guy networked with each other in the very beginning stages of the anti-media when it had around 2,000 likes on Facebook page, and we've helped each other in so many different ways. Just networking and helping pass on information. So that's one thing I would suggest is trying to network as many people as you can. Obviously keeping it within certain parameters. You're not trying to reach out to too many, but...
Some things can be left unsaid. But I think cooperation, you're right, cooperation is really important in this new movement. Of of course, we have competing ideas sometimes and all that stuff, but I think cooperating together, because there's the elephant in the room is this oligarchy. It's not just the government, it's not just corporate, it's both. And we're opposed to that. So I think we should work together, even if we have opposing ideas sometimes, maybe varying philosophies and that kind of thing. It's important to cooperate in order to look at the bigger picture, which is rolling back the state, rolling back oppression, rolling back authoritarianism is the broader, project that we really need to work on. And whether you have a little website, whether you have a huge website, I think it's really important that we all network back together and like really come together to push all these ideas forward. And that's how we can take this thing to the next level.
You are the media. It's something that Luke from We Are Change always says. You are the media. So, take that into yourself, empower yourself, and share this information.
Many people say vote with your dollar. I say vote with your shares and your likes. It's just as important because you are going around the systems that are trying to suppress the information. There's a reason subscribers to this channel are not getting the latest videos that are coming out here because they don't want this. I could just imagine, I don't know if you guys get this image too, but I could just imagine Eric Schmidt just like sitting in his office and then just getting a phone call from like Obama being like, what the fuck are you doing? We're paying you, but you're allowing these people like Jason, people like Nick to make a living, people like Luke to make a living, destroying us. We're supposed to be working together, but Eric, what are you doing? And I can see Eric just being like, all right, we'll change the algorithms. And that's what they did. I remember the main reason Loose Change was as popular as it was because Google had an algorithm for the top most viewed videos, and people were able to see this is the most popular video. YouTube had the same thing. Then they took it away, and now all their corporate buddies and their partnerships that they have are recommended videos for you. Same with the Facebook newsfeed. That's how they kind of decentralize everything. And all these changing algorithms are extremely, extremely confusing. And that's how they get you. And that's how they deny you access to information that you are subscribed to that you will not even see. I don't know if you guys have any other comments that you want to add to that.
Exactly, man. I mean, people go and they like pages, they subscribe to YouTube channels, and they expect to receive that information. But then, Facebook or YouTube decides like, well, those people just aren't going to receive that information anymore. And it really is a form of censorship. Indirectly, they blame it on their algorithm changes and all that stuff, but it really is, to me, a way of censoring truth, censoring these ideas that may be controversial or maybe undermining to the current paradigm of things. And that's why it's so scary to them, the prospect of like, oh, this one person with a cell phone took this one video of something happening and it could undermine a huge part of the scheme that they're running against us. And that's why they're so scared, and that's why they want to put this overall, they want to throw it wide, cast a big net and really censor everybody that has any kind of information that would challenge the status quo, more or less.
Same thing, I would say pay attention to the different platforms and what they could provide for the people. Facebook algorithms, once again, is a big part of it. If we could kind of narrow down exactly how they work and use that to our advantage, share that information with each other, once again, we're going to be benefiting this whole cause of liberty and truth. So.
And the conversation for the solution starts right here with the Free Thought Project, Anti-Media, We Are Change. If you have another news organization and you want to maybe collaborate or talk to us, definitely, let's build this. Let's build an alternative to what we're facing. If we all come together and put aside our differences, we could do it. And most importantly, don't forget, check out the Free Thought Project, the Anti-Media, and vote with your likes and your shares. Thank you again so much for watching. Subscribe.
So I included a little segment from We Are Change because basically they're going through the same thing. And I know that Alex Jones supports Lou Rudowski and We Are Change. I mean, there's this massive effort to end Infowars, end We Are Change, end Breitbart, and any of those sites that present a conservative narrative or anything that goes against the mainstream. And I basically created this piece to defend Alex Jones. I've been a listener of his for several years, and I have listened to what he's had to say. And for the most part, I can't say I agree with him 100%, but I would have to say that he means well. He has a lot of interesting things to say. He is definitely against the globalists, the elite, the Illuminati, the New World Order, and they definitely exist. Look at something like the Council on Foreign Relations. Google it if you don't know what it is. There are groups like the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, Davos. You can also look into the Federal Reserve. It's private. It is not actually federal. It controls the money supply, and it keeps us in constant debt. And he's tried to expose that too. He's tried to crack open a number of conspiracies, and he gets nothing but crap for it. And just to see him put out of business would be a travesty. So, if you're not familiar with him, I would suggest give him a shot. Listen to what he has to say. And I guarantee you, after listening to him for a few hours, listening to a few of his shows, you'll start to awaken. If you're a liberal or a progressive, you'll start to see that there are some faults in liberalism. There are a lot of liberals that mean well, but he exposes some of the indoctrination they have and some of the issues that they raise. And the Democratic Party really needs to re-strategize, because with their identity politics, they have failed. If they had let Bernie Sanders run, there was a good chance he would have beaten Trump. Now, whether that would have been a good thing, given how far left of a socialist he is, I don't necessarily know. But with Hillary Clinton, Trump was definitely the better choice. I am comfortable in saying that, and I have no shame in saying that. But really, we need to support Alex Jones right now, because he is definitely out for the truth. He wants to let you know what's going on in an informative way. The articles on Infowars are not fake news. He presents things as best as possible. And I've created this video to support him, because I feel like now more than ever it is necessary. So what I hope you do is that you share this video. Between We Are Change and the segments I've included about Alex Jones and Donald Trump, you know, people get on this 9/11 conspiracy and the other things. You know, Sandy Hook is a separate issue, but CNN and others criticize him, and they are desperate to just obliterate him. So he needs our support. He needs our prayers. We really need to stand by him. And if you're not familiar with him, get familiar with him. He needs our support right now. Thank you for listening to this, and there will be more information forthcoming. That's about it for this broadcast. Take care, God bless, and thank you very much for listening. Feel free to subscribe.